The upscale cafe in Manhattan buzzed with noise. Margaret Hale, an elderly woman in her 80s, rolled her wheelchair through the door. It wasn't easy. Her silver hair was neat, pinned back, but her coat looked old and worn. Her shaky hands fumbled as she adjusted her chair. People stared, whispered, and turned away. The barista gave her a quick, fake smile while handing over her tea. Margaret pulled out a small purse and counted coins carefully. Her slow movements made the line behind her restless. Someone sighed loudly. Another tapped their foot. In the corner, Emily Carter watched. She was 23, dressed in faded clothes that didn't fit this fancy place. She sipped the cheapest coffee on the menu, her laptop open in front of her. Emily was job hunting, scrolling through listings hoping for a break. She saw how hard it was for Margaret to move, how the cafe treated her like she didn't belong. It didn't feel right. Margaret wheeled toward a table, her hands trembling more under the weight of everyone's eyes. The barista called out, "Pick up areas over there, ma'am," his voice sharp but not mean. Emily frowned. She knew this wasn't fair. Margaret looked tired, her shoulders hunched, but her eyes were bright, like she'd seen more than anyone here could guess. Emily glanced at her laptop, then back at Margaret. The old woman set her tea down, hands wrapped around the cup for warmth. Up close, Emily noticed Margaret's earrings, old pearls, fancy, not matching her shabby coat. It made Emily wonder who she really was. No one else seemed to care. They just wanted her gone. But Emily couldn't look away. Something about Margaret stuck with her, like a story waiting to be told. The cafe hummed with chatter and clinking cups. Margaret Hale sat at her table, her wheelchair tucked close. Her tea steamed in front of her, her shaky hands resting on the cup. Suddenly, a businessman in a sharp suit marched over. His shiny shoes clicked on the floor. "This is my usual spot," he said loudly, pointing at her table. He waved a hand at her wheelchair like it was in his way. "Move." The room went quiet. People watched but didn't help. They sipped their drinks or stared at their phones, pretending not to see. Emily Carter sat nearby, her heart thumping hard. She was still in her corner, laptop open, job applications glowing on the screen. She looked at Margaret, small, frail, stuck in that chair, and then at the man towering over her. It wasn't right. Emily stood up, her legs shaky. "She was here first," she said, her voice louder than she expected. "It's just basic courtesy." Her worn shoes squeaked on the floor. The businessman turned, his eyes narrowing. He looked her up and down, her faded jacket, her scuffed sneakers, and sneered. "Mind your own business," he snapped. But Emily didn't sit down. She stared back, her pulse racing. He huffed, muttered something under his breath, and walked off to another table. Margaret blinked, surprised. Her lined face softened and a faint, warm smile appeared. "Thank you, dear," she said, her voice soft but clear. Emily sat across from her, unsure what to say. "I'm Emily," she managed. "I'm Margaret," the old woman replied. They started talking. Margaret's words were quick and clever, not matching her weak body or the wheelchair she couldn't leave. Emily forgot the cafe's noise for a moment. Margaret seemed different, smart, like she'd lived a big life. As they spoke, something fell from Margaret's coat pocket. Emily bent down and picked it up, a faded photo. It showed a younger Margaret standing tall outside a big glass building. She wore a sharp suit, no wheelchair, her face full of pride. "Yours?" Emily asked, handing it back. Margaret's trembling fingers took it fast. "Yes," she said quietly. "A long time ago." She tucked it away, her eyes far off, like she was remembering something huge. Emily wanted to ask more, but Margaret changed the subject. "You're not like the others here," she said, nodding at Emily's cheap clothes. Emily laughed a little. "That's obvious, huh? I'm just job hunting." Margaret's gaze sharpened. "What kind of job?" "Accounting," Emily said. "I've got a degree but no luck yet." Margaret nodded, sipping her tea. "Keep trying," she said, her tone firm. "You've got something special." Emily blushed, not sure what she meant. For the first time in weeks she felt seen, not judged. The cafe kept buzzing, but at that table, it was just them, two outsiders starting something neither expected. The cafe settled back into its usual hum after the businessman stormed off. Emily and Margaret kept talking, their voices low. But as Emily stood to leave, the businessman caught her near the door. His suit was crisp, his face hard. "A word of advice," he said, leaning close. "That old woman? She's the CEO's mother. A disgrace. Everyone knows it. Stick with her, and you'll ruin any chance of a job around here." Emily froze, her stomach twisting. "CEO's mother?" she asked. He smirked. "Margaret Hale." Used to be big at Hale Enterprises. Now she's nothing. Stay away. He walked off, leaving Emily staring after him. Back at the table, Margaret watched her with sharp eyes. He said something, she guessed. Emily nodded, hesitant. He said you're the CEO's mother? From Hale Enterprises. Is it true? Margaret's face tightened, but she didn't deny it. I was part of Hale Enterprises once, she said, her voice quiet. A long time ago. She didn't explain more, just looked away. Emily waited, but Margaret only added, meet me tomorrow if you want. Same time. Then she wheeled herself out, her chair moving slow, her hands shaky on the rims. Emily stood there, mind racing. Hale Enterprises was her dream company. What was Margaret hiding? The next morning, Emily returned, her laptop heavy in her bag. Margaret was already there, tea in hand, wheelchair parked by the table. They barely started talking when the cafe door swung open hard. A tall man in a perfect suit strode in, James Hale, the CEO of Hale Enterprises. Emily knew his face from company photos. His cold eyes locked on Margaret. Mother, he said, voice like ice. The whole cafe went still. He turned to Emily, sizing her up. And you are? Emily Carter, she stammered, heart pounding. He didn't smile. I know who you've been talking to, he said, nodding at Margaret. I'm offering you a job. Hale Enterprises. Good pay, good start. But there's a catch. You tell me what she says, what she does. Emily's mouth went dry. A job at Hale Enterprises? It was everything she'd wanted. But spying on Margaret? She glanced at the old woman. Margaret's face was calm, but her hands gripped her chair tight. What's this about? Emily asked James. She's trouble, he said flatly. Always has been. Take the job or don't. Your choice. He dropped a business card on the table and left, his steps sharp against the floor. Margaret sighed. He thinks I'm dangerous, she said softly. Maybe I am. Meet me tomorrow, not here. I'll tell you more. She scribbled an address and wheeled away. Emily stared at the card and the note, torn. Her dream job dangled in front of her, but it came with a price. What was the truth? She had to decide. Emily couldn't sleep that night. James Hale's business card sat on her table, promising a job at Hale Enterprises, her dream. But his words echoed, spy on Margaret or lose the chance. Margaret's note, with an address scribbled on it, pulled her the other way. Emily grabbed her laptop and started digging. Hale Enterprises was famous for ethical investments, helping people, not hurting them. Articles praised James, the CEO, and his father, Thomas Hale, the founder. But nothing mentioned Margaret. Why was she a secret? Emily's head spun. The job could change her life. No more cheap coffee, no more worn shoes. Yet Margaret's quiet strength stuck with her. She had to know the truth. The next morning, Emily skipped the cafe and took a bus to Margaret's address. It was a small, plain apartment building far from Manhattan's shine. She knocked, nervous. Margaret opened the door, wheelchair creaking. You came, she said, surprised but pleased. Inside, the room was cramped, filled with filing boxes and papers stacked high. A desk sat in the corner, covered in financial records. Margaret wheeled over, her hands shaky but sure. Sit, she said. Emily did, watching as Margaret pulled out a thick folder. This is why I left Hale Enterprises, she began, her voice steady. Not because they kicked me out. Because I found something awful. She opened the folder, pages of numbers, bank statements, strange transactions. Thomas Hale, my husband, was laundering money, Margaret said. Millions hidden in our ethical investments. I was the company's money expert. I saw it all. When I told him and James, Thomas threatened me. James begged me to stay quiet. So I quit, 5 years ago. They let me go, but I've been collecting proof ever since. Emily stared at the papers. The numbers made sense to her. She'd studied accounting. It was dirty money disguised as good. Why didn't you tell the police? She asked. Margaret sighed. I needed more evidence. They're powerful. I'd lose without proof. Emily's hands shook as she flipped through the files. This wasn't the Hale Enterprises she'd dreamed of. Margaret watched her. James offered you a job, didn't he? She asked. Emily nodded, pulling the contract from her bag. He wants me to watch you, she admitted. Margaret's eyes softened. You can take it, Emily. I won't blame you. It's your future. But Emily thought of her parents, how they'd lost everything to greedy companies years ago. She thought of Margaret, alone in her wheelchair, fighting for what was right. The job felt wrong now, like a trick. She held James's contract, staring at the fancy words and big salary. Then, with a deep breath, she tore it in half. The sound was loud in the quiet room. Margaret's mouth opened, shocked. "I'll help you," Emily said, voice firm. "We'll finish this evidence. Take it to the authorities. Thomas can't hide anymore." Margaret smiled, a real one this time. "You're sure?" she asked. Emily nodded. "I want a job that's honest, not this." Margaret handed her a stack of papers. "Then let's get to work," she said. Emily felt scared but strong. She'd chosen Margaret's truth over James's lie, and it felt right. Days passed after Emily tore up James's contract. She and Margaret worked hard in the small apartment, sorting papers and building a case against Thomas Hale. The numbers told a dark story: millions of dollars hidden, stolen, washed clean through Hale Enterprises. Emily's hands cramped from typing, but she kept going. Margaret, in her wheelchair, pointed out key details, her voice steady despite her shaky hands. They were close to finishing when Emily's phone rang. She froze. The screen said James Hale. Margaret nodded. "Answer it. Loud so I can hear." Emily pressed the button and put it on speaker. "Emily," James said, his voice tight. "My security saw you at my mother's place. A lot. You didn't take my offer." Emily swallowed. "No, I didn't." He paused. "What she told you?" Margaret leaned closer, listening. Emily took a breath. "Enough. About your father. About the money." Silence stretched long. Then James spoke, quieter. "I checked the books after we met. She's right. He's been laundering money, for years. I didn't want to believe it." Emily's eyes widened. Margaret's face stayed still, but her fingers gripped her chair. "What now?" Emily asked. "Board meetings tomorrow," James said. "I've got my own proof. I'm turning it over. All of it." Margaret spoke up. "You mean it, James?" He sounded tired. "Yes, Mother. I should have listened 5 years ago." The call ended. Emily looked at Margaret. "Is this real?" Margaret nodded slowly. "Maybe he's finally choosing right." The next day, Emily and Margaret went to Hale Enterprises. Margaret wheeled in, her coat old but her head high. Emily carried their files, nervous but ready. The boardroom was huge, glass walls, a long table, men and women in suits staring. Thomas Hale sat at the head, gray hair neat, face calm. James stood near him, stiff. When he saw Margaret, Thomas frowned. "What's she doing here?" he barked. James stepped forward. "She's with me." He held up a folder, his evidence. "We need to talk about the company. About you." The room buzzed. Thomas laughed, sharp. "This is nonsense." But James didn't back down. He laid out papers, bank records, transfers, proof of crimes. Margaret wheeled closer, adding her stack. "I found this years ago," she said. "You threatened me to stay quiet. Not anymore." Emily watched, heart pounding, as James and Margaret took turns. James's voice was cold, steady, dates, amounts, secret deals. Margaret's was softer but firm, showing how Thomas hid money in their ethical projects. The board whispered, faces pale. Thomas slammed the table. "Lies. You're both crazy." But the proof was too much. Numbers don't lie. Security came. Thomas shouted as they led him out, his power crumbling. James looked at Margaret, eyes heavy. "I'm sorry," he said. She touched his hand. "Fix it now," she replied. The board voted fast. Thomas was done and Hale Enterprises would change. 3 months later, Emily stood outside the Hale building. Sunlight bounced off its glass. She wore a new jacket, not fancy but hers. Inside, Margaret waited, wheelchair gleaming, no longer hunched. She'd come back as an advisor, helping James rebuild the company right. Emily had a job now, compliance team, checking the books, making sure no more dirty money slipped through. James had offered it, no strings this time. She'd said yes. They walked in together, Margaret rolling smoothly beside her. The lobby was busy, but people nodded at Margaret now, not turning away. Her silver hair shone and her smile was real. In the elevator, Emily thought back. That first day in the cafe, Margaret struggling, everyone hating her, Emily stepping in. She'd been poor, desperate, just wanting a job. Now she had one, but more too. "You changed everything," she said to Margaret. The old woman chuckled. "You did, Emily. You saw me when no one else did." Emily smiled. Her kindness to a despised, wheelchair-bound woman had flipped her world, gave her a purpose, not just a paycheck. The doors opened. They moved forward, 2 outsiders who'd won, proving truth and heart could beat power and lies.